All right, we will call this regular council meeting to order for April 27th. It's 3 p.m. And I would ask Councillor Wing to please read the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. The town of Innisfail acknowledges that we are meeting on Treaty 7 territory, the ancestral and traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Kainai, Piikani, and Siksika, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and Stoney Nakoda First Nation. We acknowledge that this territory is home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3, within the historical Northwest Métis homeland. We acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit who have lived in and cared for these lands for generations. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. We make this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation and gratitude to those whose territory we reside on.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Wing. Move on to 2.1. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Yes, Mayor Barclay. I was going to say supplementary information, but it's actually not supplementary. It's the information you require for your audited financial statements. So 4.1, the addition to the agenda will be the audited financial statements.
Okay, thank you. Could I please have someone make a motion to adopt the agenda as amended? Councillor McKellar.
Mayor Barclay, I'll move that we adopt the agenda, or the agenda.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Okay, carried. And we'll move into 3.1, the regular council meeting minutes for April 13th. Have somebody please make a motion. Councillor Hill.
I'll make a motion that we move the minutes as presented.
Okay, any errors or omissions? See none. All in favor? Carried. And then 3.2, the agenda and priorities meeting for April the 20th. Need a motion, please. Councillor Strong.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I'll make the motion. We accept the AMP committee meeting minutes.
Okay, thank you. Errors or omissions? Don't see any. All in favor? Okay, carried. We'll move into 4.1 and I'll pass it over to Director Vickers.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Barclay. So I'd like to introduce BDO, who completed the town's 2025 external audit, and they are here today to present those results. BDO is an independent accounting firm with strong municipal practice and extensive experience working with local governments across Alberta. Their team brings a deep understanding of public sector financial reporting and the application of public sector accounting standards, which is critical in ensuring consistency and reliability in how municipalities report their financial position. So as the town's external auditor, their responsibility is to perform an independent examination of our financial statements, as well as the supporting processes behind them. So this goes beyond just a simple high-level review of our financial statements. Their work includes detailed testing of transactions, reviewing internal controls, validating key financial balances, and assessing areas that require professional judgment. The goal of this work is to provide counsel with assurance that the financial statements are fairly presented and can be relied upon for decision-making. So BDO's team was on site from March 23rd to 25th earlier this year, working directly with administration to get everything completed. Following their time on site, they continued their review remotely to finalize the audit and complete all the required reporting. So joining us today is Mitch and Aria. Mitch is our account manager with BDO, and he will be taking council through the financial statements and the results of the audit, and can speak to any questions that council may have for them.
Thank you, Director Vickers. Welcome, Mitch and Aria.
Thanks for the introduction. So I'm going to run you guys through two things. The first one going to be called the final report to those charged with governance, in this case, you guys. And so it's our audit findings letter. We just basically walk through kind of what our materiality is, things like our internal control risks, our significant risks to the engagement, and how we effectively mitigate those risks. And then after that, I'll kind of run you guys through the financial statements as well. So if at any point I'm talking about something and you want more clarity or you want me to elaborate more, please feel free to stop me at any point, because if you don't, I might potentially forget what we were talking about and have to refer back. So if you can stop me, please let me know. So thanks. If we can go to page 4, please. Okay, so we have two levels of materiality in this engagement. So we have something called specific materiality. Our specific materiality is used to effectively test the income statement. And then we have another level of materiality, which we call our base materiality, which is calculated using 2% of our tangible capital assets. And so we use that specifically for anything TCA related, tangible capital assets. So that'd be like an asset retirement obligation, an offsite levy, capital grants, things of that nature. We also have something called performance materiality, which is a percentage of either a specific materiality or final materiality. It shrinks that level down, which basically says, even though this is our materiality level, we want to be more comfortable with the financial statements. So we're going to use a smaller number for our testing. And then we have something called triviality. So triviality is 5% of our materiality. And what that triviality is for is it's intended to basically say, okay, we see something that could potentially be out 5% of what our materiality is. If it's out and it's an isolated issue, we'll effectively say, okay, this has no impact to the financial statements, we're gonna move on. We're just gonna say it's a one-off type situation. If we have an error that's between our materiality, but above, so like below our materiality, but above our triviality, and it's not accounted for, but we think it should be in the financial statements, we'll move it to what we call a SUD or a SLAM, and that's an acronym for Schedule of Unadjusted Entries. So these are entries that we are proposing we think should be in the financial statements, but they're not in the financial statements. However, they have no material impact to the financial statements, so we're still able to issue what's called an unqualified opinion. Unqualified opinion means it's a clean opinion on the financial statements. If you ever hear the term qualified, it means there's something going on within the financial statements where it's not 100% reflective of what it should be per the standards. So in previous years, you guys had a qualification on your audit report because there was a change in policy related to the asset retirement obligation that happened a few years ago. That qualification is removed. It's no longer on the financial statements because this year you guys adopted the asset retirement obligation standard. The reason why it wasn't adopted was because we were still information digging, so to speak, to try to figure out, okay, what could this liability be? And I'll talk more specifically about what that liability is later. But yeah, that's kind of our materiality discussion. So our audit is substantially completed pending these few items that are listed here. So we just now received the letter of representation from management, which effectively tells us, they've told us everything that we need to know relevant to the audit. Receipt of all outstanding legal confirmations. I believe we now have all legal confirmations, so those two parts are done. Subsequent event review. So today is what we call the report date. It's the date of the financial statements effectively. So we have to do our work up to the report date. So because the financial statements aren't technically done yet, we have to do our work up to today before issuance of the financial statements. And then there's the final approval of the financial statements by council. And then once that's all done, we can then provide you the final version of the financial statements. So there are three significant risks that we're highlighting in our audit. Two of them are what you would see in most municipalities. The third one is just because you've adopted the standard this year. But more specifically, the first one being revenue recognition. So we're finding revenue recognition to be more and more complex every year. And more specifically, we're finding things related to, let's say, Section 3100, which is externally restricted assets. So anytime that a municipality receives cash, you have to look to consider things like, is this externally restricted through another party? In a lot of examples, the MGA will restrict certain funding related to offsite levies where they have to be applied specifically for the intended use of what they're being collected for. And then there's just 3410, which is your government transfers, which is your grants. So if you have grant revenue in the year and there's a stipulation tied to it, which means here's the money, you have to use this money on this specific project, that means that that revenue should be sitting as a liability or deferred revenue until you incur those costs, at which point it gets recognized. If you ever receive a grant where there is no stipulation, meaning here's some money, you can do whatever you want with this money, even if you haven't spent that money, the standard says you should be recognizing it immediately because there's no obligation to pay anything back once you receive it. So those are just some of the complexities related to it. So the timing of when revenue is actually getting recognized can be a little murky sometimes. And then there's the management override of control. So that's segregation of duties. Anytime you have a smaller accounting team, you have a couple of individuals which have the ability to override the accounting system and post entries. And so we mitigate that risk by doing what's called journal entry testing. We'll effectively look at all the journal entries that are posted by management and do testing to make sure that those entries are in fact true in nature. And then there's the asset retirement obligation, which is section 3280. It was a new standard that came out a couple years ago. This is now being adopted. So because we now have the adoption in place and we've got a good understanding of what your capital assets are and what the potential remediation and obligation related to them are, this significant risk is going to fall off next year because we've already done the complete scoping of that specific risk. So internal control matters, these are controls that are relevant to the audit. We call them CARAs, so controls that are relevant to the audit approach. And we're not looking at all controls that the municipality might have. We're only looking at controls that are relevant to the financial information. Throughout the process this year, we have not identified any control deficiencies that are within the municipality. And then there's unadjusted and unadjusted differences. So there's a couple of unadjusted differences, and there's a few adjustments in the year. The adjustments in the year relate to the consolidation of the municipal library. It gets a little bit complicated, but it has to do with the Municipal Library Act and how they believe that you guys control the library, and according to the Municipal Library Act, it effectively says you have people on council that are delegated to work on the board for the library, and according to the Municipal Library Act, you theoretically have the ability to dissolve the library if you so choose. So it all goes back to control, and so because there's that subsection of control, it's implied that that should be considered a consolidated entity to the library. So that's one of the proposed entries. And then there's also the asset retirement obligation entries that were posted this year. So we were provided the entries to help effectively balance the prior year numbers for the restatement in the current year. So there's a note in the financial statements. I'll talk about what the restatements are later. But yeah. This is just our other required communication. So there's no material risks or exposures were identified during the process. There's no material uncertainties that cast doubt on the ability to operate as a going concern. That would imply that the municipality can't continue operating. And then there's no disagreements with management. So management worked with us throughout the entire process, cradle to grave. There's no issues there. All related party transactions during the current year have been disclosed, and we're not aware of any situations where there's significant audit findings that are not disclosed in the financial statements. This is our kind of audit process. We talked a little bit about this at the planning stage. I'll just reiterate it. It used to be 6 bullet points. They've simplified it down to 4. So our audit process will, at the start of the engagement, we'll come in, we'll do scoping, and basically what our scoping does is it highlights things that we deem risks within the audit process. And then once we identify what our potential risks are, we'll do some planning to determine how are we going to mitigate those risks. And then that will always fall down to the obtained evidence. So we'll obtain evidence to ensure that we're mitigating that risk within our audit file. And then we'll come here today where we'll do our presentation of the financial statements in front of council. I'm not going to run you through these slides. These are our BDO marketing slides, and I don't want to punish you guys with this stuff. So I'll just skip that and kind of go to the financial statements. Yeah, the audit, yeah. We'll start with the audit report. Yeah, next page, next 2 pages. Yeah, there you go. So this is our main deliverable to you guys, even though I'm going to go through a bunch of information. Technically, what we're giving to council is this report. The financial statements after the report are management and council's, so these financial statements are yours. this report is to effectively tell you that we have audited the financial statements for the town of Innisfail. They are free from material misstatement. There is something which is kind of like 4 paragraphs down where it says emphasis of matter. It says restated comparative information. This is just to highlight that if you ever take your 2024 issued financial statements and compared them to the comparatives that are showing up on this one, the numbers are going to be different from what was issued last year. And that difference is going to be caused by the asset retirement obligation adoption that took place this year. And then our objective as auditors are to make sure that these financial statements are free from material misstatement. And then we'll go to the statement of financial position. So anywhere that you see, if you pay attention to the top corners where it says 2025 and then 2024, so under 2024 you'll see it says restated. Any column that has 2024 and restated, it means that these numbers were different last year, and so we have to put that restatement to effectively say some of these numbers are not the same as what they were last year. So keep in mind this is going to be a snapshot at December 31st, and so I'm going to run you guys through kind of current year versus prior year, and I'll effectively do that through the income statement as well. But starting at the top here, our financial assets have decreased from $22.3 million to $15.6. You'll see that's mainly happening because of your decrease in cash and cash equivalents. I'll run you through the statement of cash flow later, but that's one of the main culprits to that is about $13 million that was spent on capital asset additions in the year. Going further down to your liabilities are up from 10 million to 12.4 million this year. That's going to be caused mainly because of your deferred revenue and the cutoff related to some accounts payables and accrued liabilities. So your net financial position has dropped from the 12.2 million to the $3.2 million this year. And then there's your non-financial assets. So your non-financial assets are things that aren't immediately liquidated or for commercial use. So you have your tangible capital assets, which are going to be your roads, your buildings, your engineering structures, for $103 million, and that you can see the difference there from last year to current year from the 95 to the 103 is representative of a significant portion of capital asset additions in the year. And then there's land held for sale, so that's just land that you have effectively for sale. So there's a couple of parcels that were sold in the year, and then there's your prepaid expenses is just effectively your inventory that's being consumed from the 200 to the 30,000. So your total accumulated surplus has decreased about $1 million from last year. Is there any questions on this specific statement? Okay. Income statement, similarly, you'll see a restated comparative note. The income statement didn't change a lot from last year. It changed by like, I think, $24,000. But I'll go through the note in a bit. So I'll usually start with the budget and then kind of compare your budget to what actually happened in the year. So the total revenue that was budgeted for the year, the top part being your operating revenue, was 25.2 million versus your actual revenue of about 25.2. So your budgeting on your revenue side is pretty bang on to what actually happened in the year. And then there's your expenditures where you budgeted 26.8. And your actual expenses were 27.2 million. And that main difference is just related to your transportation costs. So there's a portion in there that has to do with the write-down of capital assets, and the other difference is just contracted costs for transportation. And then there's your bottom part, which is your government transfers for capital. So that's just your capital grant revenue. So it's revenue that you recognize for the spending of capital assets in the year. So you had about $1 million in capital asset revenue. So at the end of the day, once you take your revenue of 25.2 minus your 27.2 and add back your 962, you have an excess of revenue over expenditures of about a deficit of about $1 million in the year. And a large portion of that is going to be related to your amortization, which is a non-cash item. So, any questions on the income statement? Okay. Going to go 2 pages ahead, the statement of cash flow. So our starting point is going to be our statement of operations, which we just went over. So it's going to be your deficit of 998,000. So your 998,000 will then consider your non-cash items that make up your income statement. So going back to the comment on your amortization, even though you had a loss of $1 million, 4.4 million of that was related to amortization. So amortization is a non-cash, it's hard to explain. So you buy things like vehicles in the year, and so when you buy vehicles, buildings, you're gonna have an expense related to it, so that expense isn't immediate. It gets capitalized, so it sits in your tangible capital assets, and then over time, you will incur the expense related to that purchase in the form of amortization or depreciation. So if you have a vehicle, it depreciates over time. That's just recognizing the time of your capital assets depreciating. So you did pay cash for it at some point in time. It's not saying you paid $4.4 million of it cash in this year. You would have paid that at some point in the past. And then there's a change in your non-cash operating balances. So this is just your change in your balance sheet from current year to prior year. So if your accounts receivable says 300,000, it means your accounts receivable decreased by $306,000 from last year. And then really your big item here is your acquisition of tangible capital assets for $13.4 million in the year. And so that's going to take your cash position from the 18 at the beginning of the year to the 11.4 million at the end of the year. And then that 11.4, it's really 12 million, but you have what's called restricted cash, which relates to your deferred revenue. So of that 12 million in cash, 636 of it is restricted because it's tied to a grant. So, any questions on that? Okay, if we can go to note 1. Yeah, just the next page. So this is the restatement note that's sitting on the audit report. And so the 2024 as reported column, that's the column of your 2024 financial statements and the adjustments that are showing up in your 2024 comparative this year. So this all relates to your asset retirement obligation. And the restated is your finalized value. So I'm going to talk a little bit about asset retirement obligation because it's kind of a little complicated. Anytime you have a capital asset and there's deemed to be some kind of retirement cost that's going to be related to it, you theoretically have, in simplified terms, an asset retirement obligation. So your primary risks are going to be things like asbestos. So the municipality has identified 3 different asset retirement obligations. So it was noted that there's asbestos concrete and some of the water mains that need remediation. Some older buildings have asbestos, and there's some hazardous materials related to the ice rink. So your total liability for the remediation of these capital assets is about just under $500,000. So it's sitting at 484,000 at the end of 2025. But last year, you can see there's an adjustment at the bottom for 464,000. So your asset retirement obligation is effectively, what happens is you capitalize a portion of that liability, and then you have a liability that's close to offsetting it. In this case, you have a difference of about $21,000 in your balance sheet that's run through your income statement in the form of amortization because you've capitalized it. And then you're going to have something called accretion. So your accretion is your true up of the liability. So the way this liability is calculated is it uses a time value of money calculation, which says, okay, yeah, you have a liability. You're probably going to have to do this work in 5, 10, 15 years from now. But what is the cost of that liability today? And so in the calculation, you should consider variables like your inflation rate, your discount rate, and every year and the useful life to when you're going to actually have to do the remediation work. And so the idea behind that is your your calculation will change on an annual basis depending on, like if there's another COVID year, your inflation rate would have a radical change. If you're, all of a sudden the prime rate increased significantly, your borrowing rate might change. So there's considerations in the calculation which might change what the liability looks like at the end of the year. And when that happens, it changes what your liability should be. And so that accretion expense that you incur every year is to effectively true it up to what that value should be every year. So next year you'll have another accretion expense, which is just adjusting the liability to what it should be at that point in time. We are going to simplify, we're going to amend this note, the top section, we're going to simplify it and effectively say it's a change in policy. But the numbers and everything are going to stay the same for the final product. Is there any questions on that? ARO is kind of a weird one, so. Okay. And then there's, if you want to go to note 8, which I think is, yeah. So this is the note related to it. So this note will exist on your financial statements until all the liabilities are effectively paid for. So you can see the ending balance as at 2024 is $464,000. So you would have incurred in 2025 that $20,000 in accretion expense, which increases your liability to $484,000. So as you, right now, the way it looks is as you get closer to the remediation date where you're going to incur the cost to remediate the retirement obligation, your liability will get larger until that date it finally gets paid off. We're going to take this out. We're going to list out the 3 asset retirement obligations that I discussed earlier, the asbestos in the concrete for the water mains, the buildings, and the ice rink amounts. But the liability and the number and everything else will still stay the same. Okay. There's 2 more notes that I wanted to go over. So note 14, which is your change in accumulated surplus. So the net book value or the equity, your total accumulated surplus for the municipality is $113 million, and that's stated on your statement of financial position. Your equity as a municipality is broken up into 3 major categories. Your biggest one being your equity in TCA, because all municipalities are very capital asset intensive. Most of the equity in a municipality is going to reside within your tangible capital assets. So in this case, you have about $98 million in your equity in TCA. And the short way to calculate it is you just take your tangible capital assets, take off your long-term debt and your asset retirement obligation, and that's how much equity you have in your capital assets. Then there's your restricted surplus of $14 million. So your restricted surplus is future spending that council and management has effectively put aside for future spending. And then there's your unrestricted surplus. So your unrestricted surplus is just literally the fallout or the difference of what hasn't been specifically allocated and isn't made up of your equity in TCA. So it's saying you have about $1 million in your unrestricted surplus that is currently not set aside for anything. So the reason why I'm kind of pointing out the restricted surplus amount here is you have the 14 million sitting in your reserves, your financial assets that was talked about in your statement of financial position, which is about $3.4 million. Your reserves are currently funded from a short-term basis, but from a long-term, your financial position is kind of looking less than it did relative to last year. But that's just because of your capital spending in the year. And then if you want to go to your debt limit note, which is a few notes ahead here, or it's note 15, sorry. So this is, according to the MGA says a municipality has a debt ceiling. And so the town of Innisfail's debt ceiling is calculated by taking 1.5 times the total operating revenue of the town. And so what that means is your debt limit is going to change every year depending on what your operating revenue is. And that 37.9 it says this is, as of the end of 2025, this is the most amount of debt that the municipality can take on without getting municipal approval to go beyond that amount. So you have for currently $4.6 million in total debt, which leaves you guys with about $33.3 million and a remaining limit that you can potentially take out at some point in the future if you so need to. The next line down is your debt servicing limit. Your debt servicing limit is the amount of debt that you can service a year. And so that's going to be mixed up of your principal and interest portion of your debt. So you're currently servicing $700,000 in debt every year. And that's going to leave you with about $5.6 million in serviceable debt on an annual basis going forward. There is a subsequent event note, which, sorry.
May I ask you a question about the?
Yeah, of course.
So with lines of credit, how are they accounted for? We took out a line of credit for the Aquatic Center, I believe in 2025, but we didn't access that until 2026.
So you're reading my mind. If you want to go to the subsequent event note, which I think is like the last page or the second last page. Yeah, right there, note 27. So we have a subsequent event note, which effectively says that the town drew on a loan of $6.9 million subsequent to year end. So going back to your financial asset position, if that had happened in 2025, that 6.9 million would be reducing your financial asset position from 3.4 to about you'd be in a deficit of $4 million. So that amount is going to be a liability that sits not only in your balance sheet next year, but it's going to be changing what your debt limit effectively looks like going forward. Does that answer your question? Yeah. So that was the last discussion point that I had.
So does anybody have any questions for Mitch? I don't see any. I should always give council an opportunity. I mean, the auditors are our auditors, so if anybody wants to go in camera without administration being here, we can do that if you have any sensitive questions you want to ask, but do you have a
Mayor
question?
Barclay, I have a
Councillor
question.
Rushton?
Yeah,
for
it's
sure.
not sensitive, I just curious. So our unrestricted reserves basically are $1 million, you stated, right? What percentage is that? Is that of our total?
So your total equity or your total accumulated surplus is about 113 million.
Right,
So 1 million divided by 113 million, it's less than a percentage.
right, and what is the recommended that should be at?
I can't provide you that answer because that's theoretically a management
Right.
position. I can only report on the numbers, if that
Okay.
makes sense.
That does make sense, yep.
Sorry.
Question we'll have, yep. I'm good.
Okay, anybody else have any questions? No, I don't see any.
So
CEO
just
Becker?
comment to
Yes.
council, apologies for not getting the report to you in advance. Do not want to rush council. If you need a little bit of time, we do need moving to approval by end of the month, which is a few days away. In all fairness to you, if you're not comfortable today to approve, certainly that's within your right to communicate that back, but certainly we need to move into approval quite promptly. But please take the time you need to ask the auditor any questions you have.
Yeah, no, thank you, CEO Becker. Does anybody need more time? Like, we can always call a special meeting if we need to approve these another day, because I know we did just get them prior to the meeting, so it's a lot to take in. How's everybody feeling? You good? Everybody's good? All right, okay, everybody's fine. Okay, Director Vickers, did you have anything to add, or we're good?
No, just that
Okay.
BDO was great to work with,
Yes.
and yeah, it was just a great audit time.
Great, yeah, well, thank you again for.
I mirror that. You guys are easy to work with, so Yeah, appreciate that.
Okay, no, thank you so much for coming. So do you want to go into your report, or do you just want me to ask for the a motion?
Mayor Barclay, it would be up to yourself. I would be fine with a motion happening
Okay.
now. Yeah.
All right, so I'll ask a motion that we approve the 2025 audited financial statements, please.
I'll make that motion.
Hystad, okay. All right, all in favor? Carried. And then we have a second motion as well. Councillor Hill.
I'll make the motion that council approves the 2025 Alberta Financial Information Return.
All right, thank you. All in favor? Okay, carried. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it.
Mayor Barclay,
Yes,
before we leave this topic, could I ask administration a question?
Of course you can.
What is our target goal for unrestricted reserves?
To Councillor Russell's question, we don't have a set policy associated with what level of reserves council desires. There's been traditional unwritten policy for the town of Innisfail, which is in the range we're in now, in, the 11, 12, 14 million. There's not been a secured policy associated with reserves. There's a reserves policy, but not a definite final number. Reserves policy does indicate the level of threshold per reserve, but ultimately that full number is not dedicated. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair, for sure.
So the number you said, sorry, Mayor Barclay, through the CEO, you said 14 million, that's restricted and non-restricted, right? I was referring to the non-restricted, so we don't have anything in our policy that says we try to be in the 1 to 2% or anything like that.
Trying to think
Yeah.
back, Director, on the policy itself.
I think the confusion is that the item doesn't maybe 100% relate to just the reserve balance, and it's kind of mixed in there. So I might have to take that back and get a better response to you, right? But
Council has the ability to undedicate reserves. Certainly, administration would speak to that if that's a desire. It certainly would put us in some challenge, but until you see that policy directly in the impacts, it certainly should be reviewed in more detail with you. And then you can consider, to your question, and that's probably the best place to leave it for now, but certainly the reserves policy should come back in full detail review in your future.
in addition, CO Becker, through to Director Vickers, the interest that we're earning, I assume that it's basically in savings account. I know we've spoke about this before, investment policy, but are we able to take some of those funds? I mean, the reserves are fairly consistent from year to year, come and go, but, and put them into GICs where we can earn a little bit more, or, I know we've talked about that before.
yeah, Mayor Barclay, for sure. With the first quarter financials in 2026 that will be coming forward shortly, we will be
Yep.
bringing forward, we're either going to put it out to quote on APC,
Okay.
a document to kind of put forth for, with some dollars, like say, build us our portfolio, give us some recommendations from like legitimized investment firms or
Okay.
banks, traditional banks too.
Okay, no, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll move into 5.1, the CEO report.
The reports before you, Council, I do want to point to correspondence, part of your agenda. There's a letter to you, it should have been attached to the CEO report. I did not really know where to put it, but in hindsight, it should have been attached to the CEO report. The letter to you is from myself, asking your consideration for my resignation at the end of 2026. Although there'll be more gratitude towards council, administration, and the community in the future, I think the letter is clear of just thanking you for the opportunity to serve Innisfail, but also get to work with a great team that's really largely responsible for all the great things that have occurred in my tenure here. But looking for a motion from council to not consider, but to to accept the resignation of Todd Becker, CAO, effective December 31st, 2026. And again, not to make light of gratitude, but it'll certainly come over the forthcoming months or several months ahead of us. Those times will come closer to that time.
Would you like to finish your report and then do the motion, or
It's
do you want
the
to do the
report
motion
chair,
now?
council, if there's any questions to the report or anything else.
Okay, well, I guess we'll have a motion. I suggest that maybe this shouldn't be just a random letter in correspondence. It should be in the CAO report. But I just asked for a motion to approve CEO Becker's resignation effective December 31st. Councillor Russell. Oh, sorry. Everybody's got their lights on.
Everybody's happy.
Everybody wants you to go, yeah. Councillor Russell? Councillor Russell? Who's up? Somebody.
Oh, I hit my button first.
I don't know.
Can we add with regret? We probably can't, but I do make that motion, Mayor Barclay.
All right. Thank you. Okay, all in favor? Nobody.
Now he's looking at us.
Nobody puts their hand up. All right. Yes. What's that? Okay, you're not saying anything more. Okay, well, before we move on then, of course, Todd, we're so grateful to what you've done for this community and the organization over the last 9+ years. And of course, we all wish you the very, very best come the end of December. And I know the next few months will be just as great as they have been the last 9.5 years. So thank you once again. And you've brought this organization and community a long way, and we appreciate that, along with your team, of course. I know it's not all you. So we'll just have a motion to approve the CAO report.
Mayor Barclay, I'll make that motion to approve the CAO report dated April 27th, 2026 as information.
Okay. Thank you. I just want to ask some budget stuff. I don't do it now or do it in Director Vickers' report, but I'll bring it up now since we're in the CEO report, and I think I direct it to him. But, you know, people are getting their property tax notices, and they're, you know, up. I can talk personally. My education is up 14.6%, and property is up about 7.6%. And I think there's going to be some people having a lot of questions, and so I'm curious, CEO Becker, about communication strategy going forward. I would even suggest, if council is open for it, that maybe we offer to have a session at the library on a Saturday or something to meet people, whether that's one-on-one or even a bit of a presentation. We could do that, but I think that this is going to take a lot of communication. You know, we certainly don't just pull a number out of the air and pick a number. There's reasons why, you know, property taxes are they where they are. The assessment growth, of course, we've seen our operating budget increase significantly. There's reasons for that, and so I'm just curious about your thoughts around like robust communication the next while, and really explaining to people how we got here. And
To your question, Mayor Barclay, and certainly look to Director Vickers to add in if I'm offside or not quite accurate, but my belief there's likely not those robust means of communications for the tax bylaw policy beyond what is traditional, where signage and information sessions, but there's not been that level of dialogue. Certainly being as tax policy and budget are two largest council policies. Whatever you require to help with that messaging in the community, certainly look for your direction, not just whatever you need to do to help that dialogue. Certainly be detailed and deliberate on what council wants. I believe there's going to be pieces within the tax notification already, and beyond that, probably some traditional social media coverage, but anything beyond the traditional means, certainly look for that direction from council.
yeah, I just think that we need to kind of dig into it maybe a little bit deeper than we have in the past, and you know, specific examples. I think of RCMP costs, how much they've risen over, like even since I started on council, or the fact that we have this surplus, and of course people are going to be questioning this big surplus, and yet there's clear explanations why we have it. I think that needs to be clearly communicated. I think it needs to I'm not the communications expert, as you know, but I think it needs to go out in small chunks that are understandable. I think charts help and graphs help, and, you know, Alberta Muni certainly has some good information, but, you know, it's going to take, I think, a pretty big effort on, and I would personally like to see a session for council at the library. Invite people if they choose to come. And, you know, we had that session, I think our first term on Council Hill, where we, well, kind of, people could come and they could come to all the different councillors to individual tables. I don't know if I want to do that, just because I think we need to make sure that, you know, we have a singular message, but I think it's important to explain to people why this is. And, you know, we can't run deficits like other levels of government can. So we don't get a luxury of reducing taxes and then running deficits to kind of make up for that tax reduction. We have to balance our budgets every year, and it's clear the reduction we've seen in government funding. I mean, that's not the only thing that's impacting this, but we saw it Alberta Munis. I mean, it's been, you know, LGFF has been cut in half over the last number of years, and that's going to impact us, especially when our costs are going up. But I think even breaking out costs, I always talk about water, wastewater, asphalt cost per linear meter, but breaking out some of those costs where we can demonstrate to the community how much inflation has impacted us over the last number of years, whether it's insurance or whatever it is. I mean, there'd be a number of items, I'm sure. And so, Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I think one of the, I guess what I would be in favor of that as well. I know that we just through our last MPC meeting, we talked about maybe getting things in a little bit more plain language. It's not at all to be disrespectful to any of the citizens, but some of the things can be quite, you know, intimidating if they don't quite understand certain parts of the tax bill, or they don't understand what certain organizations and all the different acronyms mean. And I think if there was a way for us to offer a little bit more of some plain language and that personal connection or graphs or whatever it may be, I definitely would not be opposed to putting some time into that to help people understand it a little bit better.
Mayor Barclay, oh, sorry.
It's okay.
We want to go?
Want to go?
Councillor.
What do you mean? You want to go?
No.
Hold it.
We're not on the ice right now, so yeah.
Go with Councillor Russell, then I stand.
Okay, sorry, I didn't see your light on. I guess if members of the public were to come in and ask me a specific question related to their property, I don't have the expertise and background to answer that. And if we have all of us answering different individuals, we could have different messages going out. So I think the message needs to be consistent somehow. I would not be in favor of us each setting up a table and they can come sit and ask us a question, because I wouldn't have the detail, right? I mean, I could do some general statements about your education tax has gone up, generally this amount, your assessment's gone up, which will reflect in that. But I would be in favor if there's some type of media presentation that we can post on our website and even email out to everyone that has an email address with the town, which just goes through some of the things you just mentioned. This is the past, this is the increases in costs, this is what assessment does to your tax bill, this is what the education portion does to your tax bill. And even if it's a PowerPoint or something that's done up where you walk them through all those points, because I have been following some of the comments on social media, and you know, they're right, their taxes have gone up, but there is some misinformation out there about why it's gone up or not understanding why it's gone up. There has been attempts by some to correct it and say that council actually reduced in terms of the tax rate, the mill rate, but that didn't result in a reduction in your taxes because of the assessment and the education tax. So there is misinformation. There is a need to maybe communicate it a bit more, but there is no doubt that there's an increase in taxes out there. So I don't know, maybe we could try that, and if we still have the rumblings out there, maybe we'd have to go then to hold an evening. But when you invite a whole bunch of people together, I don't think it matters what you would say to certain individuals. It's not going to satisfy, and it could erupt into something else that we're not but that's a risk we would take. But I would be in favor of certainly putting together some type of multimedia presentation, even if it's a video of someone talking and walking through with PowerPoint slides. So.
Thanks, Mayor Barclay. And I would agree with my colleagues, councillors. I do believe that you have a package before us, or if we build something and send it off to our citizens, that would be great. I think a face-to-face piece, like 3 weeks down the road kind of thing, like if our strategy is very good, no matter what, I think even meeting with them face-to-face is a way of saying, hey, this is what we presented to you. And it's consistent with what we presented in the last couple weeks. And you're giving the details face-to-face. I think that can work. At the end of the day, I think there's, we mentioned our Alberta Munis as a support to us and all those pieces. And I think that getting in front of it and fanning it out through our email system, social media, all those pieces. But those are the things. And I guess my question to Mayor Barclay and to CAO Becker is, I had a call the other day, and you're thinking, you go through your thing, you talk about the assessment and the pieces, individuals can appeal that as well. And, it's to some individuals, it's very scary, like they don't know the process. So getting ahead of it is a good thing. But my other question would be to CAO Becker and Mayor Barclay is, we did our presentation to the senior citizens. So for the time being, are we able to send our presentation to the presentation that we had with the seniors to send that one out, or is that just too much information to our citizens?
I think it's too much and it's too general. I mean, we're talking about specifics here, and we could maybe look at doing a video. There is information that's gone out with the tax notices that, like there's an education tax portion that came out from the government of Alberta that's included and stuff. It's just, I don't know. I guess I'm always about trying to educate and make, because, we can say, yeah, assessments went up, mill rates went down, but the bottom line, people are still getting hit with, 8, 9, 10%, right? And it's not the first year.
Yeah.
So
I just wanted to make sure that we're clear that don't send anything out that we've had with the senior citizens or any of those PowerPoint pieces. But I do see that we do have to have something in the can to send out to our citizens. And if we do a one-on-one with them, like Mayor Barclay is suggesting, I think that is a good thing too. I know it's easier to send stuff out, but it shows your leadership when you get in front of people as well. And I think that's the balance that we need to have. Thanks.
And we could do all of it. It doesn't need to be just one thing, right? It can be a multitude. Ken's looking at me like, But, we can chat about that. Councillor Wing?
Thanks, Mayor Barclay. I would support, all of it. I would support an event and a conversation face-to-face, and certainly having something that we can put on our website and use with social media. I have been keeping an eye on things as well, and have been really struck by the numbers of people that just don't understand how the assessment process works in Alberta. It's not just an Innisfail town thing, and where does it come from, how is it done, that kind of thing, even as far as what is a mill rate and all of it. So I'm sure we'll get people that are unhappy, and none of us were happy to open our tax bills. We all pay property taxes, and we all got the same kind of numbers, and it was a bit staggering. But I think the more energy we can put into sort of calming it down and letting people know that they do have an opportunity for an appeal, they do have an opportunity to come and talk to their elected representatives. I think that goes a long ways. So I would support something.
Thank you, Councillor Hill.
Yeah, it's my last comment. Another piece that I kind of get some of the feedback as well from where my education, like educating people about is not just about like the homeowners, but it's also the tenants that are now going to be impacted from the increased taxes. because they don't get to see the tax assessment, they don't get to see what portion goes where, they don't get to see that, right? So their taxes go, or their rent or what at least go up, but they don't really understand those pieces, right? They don't get all the puzzle pieces. So that was just a piece that I kind of thought was a little bit unique that maybe wasn't mentioned yet, so.
Okay.
Mayor Barclay?
Oh, sorry, yes.
So I too support some type of communication or educational piece, and if that's face-to-face or in printed document or through media. What I struggle with is that this has gone on year after year, and there's nothing really out there that provides good, simplistic information. And I'm not just focusing on the town here. It's been a struggle all over Alberta, and I really feel this is something this council needs to do, is make sure that it has a clear approach to the tax information.
Yeah, I also think Albertans, we tend to hate that three-letter word, and it's been 3 decades of hating that word, taxes, but, tax is what keeps this community running, and I think educating people that we're not, you see comments, need to run the town like a business. Well, we're not a business. We don't sell things for profit. We are in the business of delivering services, and you don't make money off of snow clearing or sidewalk repairs or running an aquatic center, arena, et cetera. So tax money goes to support this organization and how it operates, and I think I like the poster you had, Director Vickers, at the trade show showing like so many cents go to here and go to here, and that's important where people can see where that goes, and so yeah, I mean we're not going to please everybody, of course, but I think as more transparency is certainly always valuable, and we can chat further about where we take this and what we can do, and if that's okay.
If I'm hearing Council clearly, Council, Mayor Barclay, it'd be good to have something on the books just for the public record that you are committing to have public engagement associated with the tax notification. What I'm hearing from you is for you to consider, Council, to direct administration to increase a public communication and prepare a public engagement event associated with the 2026 tax notices.
Okay, so, I will make that motion. I never make motions, but I will make that motion, and we can start to plan, I guess, and see where that goes. So all in favor? Carried. And the other thing, since we're on the subject of budget, I would, I've had a little bit of discussion with CEO Becker about this, but I really want our council to have some opportunities in the near future to start talking about 2027 budget and to maybe set expectations that are reasonable and do that a little bit earlier than what we've done before. I mean, I really don't know what the answer is with, the rising expenses all the time. We're growing as a community. It takes more money to run the community, and but just get into that earlier than, say, the fall, because I think it's late when we start to see things. And I would like to see us see things earlier and have some input into that, if that makes sense. Okay? Okay. You don't need a motion for that? No? Okay. All right. Sorry, that was a long-winded session. So I think we still have a motion, do we, for the CEO report too? So all in favor? Carried. And we'll move into 5.2, the strat plan.
That was the longest CEO report I've ever had. I think so, 8 months. Yeah. So, Council, the strat plan is there for your formal approval. It's been presented to you a few times. If there's any questions to it, communication will go out in due time on the plan, but we're looking for Council formal approval today, please.
All right. Thank you. We'll just ask for a motion. Councillor Wing.
Thanks, Mayor Barclay. I move that council adopt the 2026-2029 strategic plan as presented.
Okay, thanks. Does anybody have any further comments about the strat plan? No, all in favor? Carried. Okay, thank you. Then we'll move on to 5.3, council action control. And Councillor Hystad?
Yeah. Oh, CO Becker, you go.
No, you go first.
Okay, I'll go first. Okay. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just not fighting anybody. I think there was the FCSS one in there. Am I correct? Or did I read something else? Yeah, the external grant funding. So, were we coming back with their budget and how that lays out, or with this one, CO Becker? I think there was a couple. There are two pieces to this? Or just the one?
Sorry, Mayor Barclay, to Councillor Hystad, there was two pieces. One is to do an overview of FCSS with council, which was completed, as well as this report. Council approved the funding is 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, and the only reason why, when I was reading, I think I missed that meeting, when that piece there. So no, and I understood it may be a budget of how things are allocated, but no, that's good. No further questions. I knew I missed a gap there. Thanks.
Okay, we'll just have a motion to accept the council action control. Councillor Hill?
I will make that motion, Mayor Barclay.
Thank you. Any further questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay, we'll move into 6.1 with Director Leith.
Council Mayor, this is an update to the report of February 2nd in respect of our quality management plan, which is moving into a quality management system. The town currently is under a quality management plan for the fire discipline to carry out inspections only on request and complaint. The 2026 budget assigned $20,000 to an operating project to include Group C occupancies, which include our hotels, motels, and multifamily dwellings. This will result in the occupancy of these types being inspected under the fire codes annually. The amendment will initiate the transition from our current quality management system and the attached report of February 2nd, and there's detail on that transition from the quality management plan currently to the quality management system. These inspections initially will be completed using the safety codes officer who will be contracted to the town.
All right, thank you. Director Leith, can I please have someone make the recommended motion? Councillor McKellar?
Mayor Barclay, I'll move that council approves that the town of Innisfail provide safety code services prescribed in the Quality Management Systems Framework, QMS version May 2025 V1-4.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Director Leith? All in favor? Carried. Okay, now we'll move into 7.1 with Director Vickers.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. Okay, what I have before you is the 2025 fourth quarter financials and allocation of the 2025 surplus. So we've reviewed all the information, and the financial information being presented to council today is the fourth quarter results for 2025. However, it does cover the period from January 1st to December 31st, 2025. Administration has reviewed the financial information here in detail and compared with the actual results that were within the 2025 budget, which was adopted by council back on December 9th of 2024. Administration has completed this review and confirms that the financial information provided is fair and accurate reflection of our town's financial position as of December 31st. So we'll move into the financial impact. So the revenue side of things, the financials for 2025 show a revenue total of $29.523 million, which is representing an increase of $990,000 over the approved budget. So some of the key factors are, first things, property taxes were over budget by $307,000. That is primarily the 2025 increase into the education property tax. So you'll see an increase here in the revenue, but then you'll also see a corresponding increase down in the expense side, so you can see them back and forth. Sale of land was actually under budget by $672,000. This was primarily due to no industrial land sales happening in 2025, as well as the opening of the Southwest residential lots occurred, with most of the lots sold being closing in 26 or 27. We also had our admission and membership passes was under budget by just over $95,000. Partly this is due to the closure of the aquatic center for a portion of the year. We might anticipate a smaller indication this year as well for the first quarter this year, and then it should kind of even out going forward. Our investments did come under budget by $127,000, and the reason for this was our bank account was used to initially draw money to cover the aquatic center project prior to doing a draw on the line of credit. That ultimately only saved us $135,000 in interest costs, so the net savings were about $7,000 or $8,000 to the town for that. We did see some increased transfers to reserve in the amount of $1.1 million. So some of the items, so that RCMP reserve, we did have that transfer of $287,000. That was just due to that retroactive pay adjustment due to their collective agreement. We also had a planning reserve increase for $95,000. That was due to the offsite levies being covered for the Southwest residential land development. As we are the developer, we were to pay the offsite levies for ourselves. So ultimately, that was kind of an internal transfer from one reserve to another. And then we did have a land reserve transfer of $615,000 to cover that department. That land department is a department that's not tax funded. It is funded solely by land sales. As no industrial land sales occurred, we ultimately had to bring in the amount to cover off that loan payment. We can move on to the expenses. So we are seeing a total expenses of $28.565 million, which is an increase of about $32,000 over approved budget. And we'll kind of go through some of those key factors. We did see some of this last week or the week before, but the big contributor here was salaries and benefits were under budget by $894,000. The aquatic center closure resulted in reduced staffing requirements and as well as the wage and benefit costs. Ultimately, several positions were filled later in the year, resulting in some temporary savings. So vacant positions throughout the year contributed to the overall savings across departments. We see our total contracted and general services coming under budget by $273,000. And you can see those decreases across the board there. Purchases from other governments was over budget by $620,000. So part of that was that RCMP cost. It was $194,000 higher than budgeted amount, and that was due to that back pay amount. But again, we did see that revenue to kind of offset that increase. Land purchases over budget by $426,000. So this ultimately was the fully built home that we sold this year. It was originally in our capital budget. It can't stay in our capital budget because it's not our asset. So ultimately we had to bring those expenses to the operating budget. It did have the sale dollars from that property to offset those expenses. But ultimately it did increase the expenses for that department now. Materials, goods, supplies, and utilities were under budget by $63,000, and that was primarily made up of lower fuel costs. Transfer payments was over budget by $733,000, so we saw the education property tax increase in '25 by the province, as well as increases to the utility reserve was also increased by $344,000. And then the last kind of item to note was the carbon tax was removed in April of 2025, so that resulted in a savings of $92,000 for the remainder of 2025.
May I ask you a question about that, Director Vickers?
Absolutely.
Did we make an adjustment to the budget last year from 120 down to 80 on the carbon tax? I thought we'd done that. We had made that adjustment.
Did we? I'll be honest, I'd have to go back and look.
Okay.
It is not reflective in
Okay,
the-
all right.
in the
That's why that
statement
number
here.
never quite made sense to me,
Yeah.
because I thought we'd done that, but I know we talked about
Yeah.
removing the carbon tax, and then if I recall, Councillor Bates made a motion to reduce it to 80, but,
I'll have a look at
Okay.
that and see.
oh, good.
It ultimately would have to remove a revenue as well on both sides, so the net impact would be nothing, but yeah. So the surplus, you can see there, it is, the balance is $957,820. So you can see that increased revenue less those increased expenses. And we did kind of show this number last week of where we kind of would like that to go. So all of the allocations are kind of outlined below here. So the first item we'd like to, for the sidewalks, generally our annual allocation is $100,000. However, this was reduced by $50,000 in 2026. We would request that we can pop this back up to the normal $100,000. And really this just restores funding to support that public safety and asset retention. $55,750, we would like to go towards the main street lights, so that's additional tree lighting. And you can see there's 3 different streets, so we'll have 11 trees on the large trees from Darkwoods to Ford, 20 trees on 49th to 50th Ave on both sides, and then 17 trees on 50th to 51st Ave on both sides as well. We are looking to increase the infill incentive program for 2026 as we are already fully subscribed. And this would allow the program to expand and allow any additional applicants. And we're also looking to have a consultant-led comprehensive review of our tax bylaw. So this can look at mill rate structures, any optimization opportunities. So that's a total of $185,750 with the balance of $772.70 going towards the Aquatic Center line of credit repayment.
Should we ask questions now, or do you want to wait?
Sure, let's ask questions right now, please.
We can wait, it's up to you. So the infill incentive program, what's the budget for that this year?
It was 60.
It was, so we're doubling.
Yes.
So I believe the policy, I thought with the policy, we weren't supposed to use surpluses for ongoing programs.
Mayor Barclay, so yes, the policy does dictate that surplus dollars is not to be used for any budgetary ongoing items. It should be used for kind of one-time kind of projects that pop up, and then ultimately the balances should be geared towards debt repayment and reserves.
Okay, I mean, I kind of see the sidewalk thing because we had 100, we moved it to 50, and it's a safety, and we'll get into it more later, I guess, when we have a motion and stuff, but I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, I think the policy is clear on that. Council, Mayor Barclay, to your question, the other side of that is you have a housing strategy and administrative associates some of the infill development to fill up empty lots. So it's really up to you to apply that policy as you will. That's the nature of that item, is to help advance that infill development side.
Councillor Russell.
I just need a bit more detail on what is the infill incentive program.
We'll have Director Jenkins say that.
So our infill incentive program is a policy that provides basically funds back to individuals who construct redevelopment projects. Typically infill types of projects are more expensive than just a greenfield development because they're having to repair sidewalks, replace service connections out to the mains, those types of costs. So this program was first put in 2018, I believe, and basically provides costs back after the project. So it's, make sure I've got the right numbers. For single projects or less than 4 units, an applicant can get up to $10,000 back to cover costs. Everything from things like sidewalk and street reconstruction, asbestos abatement, costs for permits, costs for off-site levies, those types of costs. And then for properties that are greater than 4 units, they can get up to $30,000 towards their project. So once the development is finished, they can submit receipts to the town and be reimbursed for those various costs associated with the infill project. The intent being to utilize existing lots that exist in the mature neighborhoods of the community to the greatest extent possible in terms of the efficient usage of infrastructure. Infill is some of the greatest value for dollar in terms of the municipality.
So clarification, does it have to be for new development, or can it be to renovate an existing development?
You have to either be replacing or adding new units. So either demolishing and rebuilding, or if it's vacant and rebuilding.
Okay.
So not just renovations or that sort of thing.
So based on these projects, administration is recommending that the balance, the full 772, be put towards the aquatic center. By putting it to the line of credit, we are saving approximately $650,000 in interest costs over the lifetime of the loan and shortens the overall repayment period by about a year. If we put the same amount to the Southwest Industrial Area loan, it only will save us about $315,000, but then also includes a stop-loss penalty of about $30,000. And a budget adjustment will have to be brought forward based on any of these projects that council approves today, because it will have to go into the operating reserve and then be pulled out of the operating reserve into our operating budget. So some of the carryover projects we have listed there, the big one is the Aquatic Center, was carried over, will be finalized in 2026. We have the Southwest Residential Development, some balances of the 2025 surface improvements, and then most of our road projects last year. We do typically carry them over for 1 year to kind of let winter settle, and then do the paving on most of these streets this year. So 40th Street, 42nd Ave, and then we also have the Sunterra Lift Station and the 42nd Ave Force Main. Some of those are the completed projects that we have, that we completed in 2025. The 2025 reserve balance and capital projects listing sheets are there for reference. The final reserve balance is sitting in at $13.782 million, which already does include the surplus dollars that are listed here today, because we did have to do an entry, get it into the reserves. So it's currently sitting in the general capital reserve, which will be transferred out after based on this decision. I'll take any questions you have, Mayor Barclay.
Thank you. So question I have about, under revenue, you say our bank account was used to initially draw to cover the aquatic center. Was that the bank account or was that the facility reserve?
So no, we just paid out of our bank account,
Okay.
and our bank account went down, and then we took our first draw out of the aquatic center in February.
So are we taking out of the facility reserve?
So we haven't yet. Once we get all the finalized payments from the aquatic
Okay.
center and we determine the actual balance,
Okay.
I just don't want to put us in a situation where we've paid everything down and then we don't have any money. So, yeah, likely end of May, we probably should have all the finalized numbers in, and then we'll start, putting all the money in the reserves onto the payment.
Okay. And then as we get into next year's budget discussions, we should probably talk about starting to build that back up, because we have an arena and we have another aquatic center in 25 years and, so that we don't end up in the same predicament that we were in this time. So
That's right.
I'm sure you will guide us in that light. Okay, I'm going to have somebody make the first motion. Councillor Strong.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I will move that council accepts the 2025 fourth quarter financials as presented.
Okay, are there any further questions?
I got a question.
Sure.
I may have missed it, like meetings before Mayor Barclay, but I understand all the items that we just went through. Did we push back the artwork and stuff to the following year? That's what I wanted to clarify. That's what I believe. Okay, I'm still alive.
It's okay.
Got a
We
pulse.
got you.
I have a pulse, thanks.
We've got your back, don't worry.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a pulse, bye-bye.
Okay, so we have a motion on the financials. All in favor? Carried. And then we'll have a motion on the next. Somebody please say the next motion, then we can open that up for discussion to Councillor McKellar.
I'm Mayor Barclay. I move that council approves the allocation of the 2025 surplus as follows: $185,750 to the operating reserve to fund the listed projects, and $772,070 to the facility reserve to fund the aquatic center line of credit.
All right. Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, I'm not in favor of the infill. I think we're funding that already, and I really believe that housing in this community is to a point where I guess we don't need to, to me, it was a budgeted item, and I think it's offside our policy, putting more money to that based on what our policy says. And also that the $20,000 in tax bylaw review, I would prefer us to see some information coming back with respect to our non-residential taxes, comparables with Central Alberta, who's doing non-residential incentives, because I know many are, but I also feel that our mill rate is so much lower than most communities by a lot. So I would be in favor of the 50 and the 55, and everything else goes to debt, but that's just my opinion. Councillor Hill.
Yeah, just a question to Director Vickers. When we talk about it's oversubscribed for this year already, like what kind of numbers are we talking?
So Mayor Barclay, through Councillor, so the 60,000 is fully subscribed.
Is that 2 applications?
Correct, yes. So the 60,000 that was in for 2026, we've received applications and expended that $60,000 out.
Okay. And sorry, just to, and historically, has it been, have we seen the ramp up? Like, since the dollars have been, like, since they've been available, they're being used? Or has there been?
No, so for a number of years, it contributed to your surplus. It rolled over. Probably the first 3 years, I don't know that we had any applications. 2025 would have been the first year that we fully exhausted it. And then 2026, yeah, within the first 3 months, we've essentially fully exhausted it. So it is essentially promoting what we had hoped it would through that policy. But yeah, that's.
Yeah, I guess my only comment on that is that if it is available and it is starting to gain some traction, I'm not, I don't want to see any of that momentum be, go to the wayside, since, this has been a plan and it seems to be working. Great, maybe this is a year that we do it and reevaluate next year, but that's just kind of some of my thoughts.
Councillor Hystad?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Barclay. And I'm on the same page as Councillor Hill. Like, I'd seen the transition where it wasn't so popular, and that it has. And I think it's timing and education within the community with the infill program itself. And I see that if we, just take that out, I think that it doesn't help the work that we put in since 2018. Those are my thoughts. Thanks.
Councillor Russell?
Yeah, I'd share that. The question I have, though, is since it's already fully subscribed for this year, if someone has completed their work in 2026, can they still apply for the money in 2027, or it has to be in the same financial year?
Currently, the policy isn't super clear on that, so we may actually have to revisit the policy. Though we don't want to get into a place where we've already pre-allocated all of 2027 before we're through 2026. So we have kind of flagged that we haven't, the policy doesn't really address a time period in terms of, you completed your project and you need to apply within 12 months or something like that. So we'll likely be bringing the policy back to council at some point through this year to tighten up some of those regulations now that we are seeing far more demand for the program.
Right. Another comment I'd have is that, we do have in our strategic plan housing. This is a development incentive, really, and it would focus probably on rental type properties. And we looked at, having different types of properties available, and this seems to be helping us achieve that. So I think if it's program's working and working towards something we've put in our strategic plan, I don't have an issue with it.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, I'll, all in favor of the motion? Okay, opposed? And are you opposed, Councillor Wing? Do you want to say why?
Basically.
Do you want to turn your mic on, please?
Can we go back to that list with the projects? Yeah. I guess I'm feeling, just being very hyper aware of sort of what the community is thinking right now. And I appreciate the thinking when we did our budget around, I spoke loudly in favor of tree lighting, and I spoke in favor of, increasing sidewalks, but I just think right now I would rather be able to say to people, we took the reserve, explain why we had the reserve, and then we invested it back in the pool so that we're trying to cut down on potential, well, not on potential, but on future tax increases. So, yeah, I'm just not in favor of the project allocations.
Thank you for that. Okay, so 5 in favor, 2 opposed, so it's carried. Okay, and we'll move on to 8.1 with Manager Shaw.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Today, administration has before you a bylaw 1747-2026, which is a replacement land use bylaw for our existing one. The existing one was adopted back in 2009. Development trends, the community, our population growth have changed in the 17 years since it has been adopted. So we have before you today a bylaw which we are asking for first reading, as well as establishing a public hearing date for consideration of public input into that. So if council gives approval for the first reading and the public hearing date, then we would begin the community engagement process.
Okay, thank you, Manager Shaw. Could I please have someone give first reading? Councillor Russell.
Mayor Barclay, I move that council gives first reading to bylaw number 1747-2026, land use bylaw.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. And then we'll have a motion for the public hearing, please. Councillor Hill.
Yes, Mayor Barclay, I'll make the motion that council establishes May 25th, 2026 at 3 p.m. in the council chambers of the town office being 4943 43rd Street, Innisfail, Alberta, as a public hearing date and location to receive input on bylaw number 1747-2026, being the new land use bylaw.
Thank you. All in favor? Okay, carried. Thank you. Okay, we'll move into correspondence and information. We'll ignore number 1. And
Didn't see it,
you didn't. So number 2, Craig Nelson sent an email requesting support for a function at the Innisfail at the Big Bend Airport. Red Deer County is involved, and that we have been invited to participate. So you can see the information here. I believe they're looking for $1,000. That's what Red Deer County is contributing. And the event is coming up on Saturday, June the 6th. So does anybody have an interest in doing that and making a motion that we contribute?
I have a question, actually, not
Yeah.
the motion. We had a budgeted total amount of what we contribute to certain things. How much of that budget have we allocated and what's left in that? I think we've allocated, if I remember right, about 3,500 out of 5,000.
We did Danes, the rodeo for 25, and then
And then
Harvest Festival.
1,000 for the Harvest
Yeah.
Fest.
So this would basically eat up almost the rest of that budget line, right? And I don't know typically who else comes to us through it a year, so I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure who else would come, Director Jenkins.
Typically, the other ones are smaller ones. They tend to be your golf things and those types of sponsorships, sort of the sub $500.
Yeah. Councillor Hill.
Just for historical reasons, what have we given in the past and how long has this been happening?
We haven't. I think if you remember Councillor Hill, Mayor Romaine, they had the COPA event at the airport when he was mayor, and we participated in that, and this is new. So, of course, last year they had an event because Red Deer County had paved the runway and the aprons and everything, so if they had an event out there, we weren't involved with that, but now they've come to us. I think there's something like 30 or 40 Innisfailians who are members of the Innisfail Flying Club. So he was just asking if we would like to be involved in this and partnering with Red Deer County. So, Councillor Hystad.
Yeah, Mayor Barclay, if we feel like we have enough, I can put the motion out there and then we can debate it.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we put $1,000 to help out this event, and then we can debate it. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I don't have anything to debate about it. I think it's a really good idea. I think it's a good investment for us. I think as we're spending the next month working on economic development strategies, I think that the airport actually fits in with this region and fits in with our future. And so I think we should be there, and I don't think $1,000 is an unreasonable amount.
Totally agree. Thank you. You still have your microphone on.
Yeah, I
Do you
know.
wanna debate?
I just, we can always debate. I think it's our role. I actually, the reasons that you brought forward and the effort that, not only the county and the province has put into that airport makes sense that we're part of this. And I hope that this builds those relationships with the county as well. I'm okay with it. $1,000. Yeah, I know. It doesn't
Thank you.
mean you don't have to. Not this time, Donnie. Bye-bye.
All right, let's just call. Who's in favor of the motion? Carried. Will you let Craig know? Thanks. Thank you. Where were we? Oh, yeah. Library minutes. Everybody can read those. So we'll just have a motion, please, that we accept the correspondence as information.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. And then we'll get into council reports. Councillor Strong, we'll begin with you.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. As submitted, nothing to change.
Okay. Anything happening at the Historical Village that that's upcoming?
It's upcoming.
All right, perfect. Councillor Wing.
I have submitted my report, and I don't have anything to add.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hill.
As you can see, my report is in front of you for review, and that is all.
Thank you. Councillor Wing's looking at it carefully. Yeah, you forgot the trip.
It was on there.
Oh, okay.
Maybe not in the.
Okay, Councillor Russell.
I just want to speak to a couple items that are on there. The first one, the Central Alberta Regional Waste Management Committee met. The audited financial statement was passed, and there is no additional costs. The soil testing is looking good, so there shouldn't be any anticipated costs. It all depends on the amount of precipitation we get in a year or two. But so I just want to bring that to council's attention. I did want to, I guess, say thank you to different levels of administration for the aquatic center opening. It's been a busy week there. I've been there a few times myself. I've seen lots and heard lots of positive comments. The trade show, it's been a few years since I went, but that was impressive to me, the amount of people that were there and booths that were set up, so that was great. And then the green and clean events were great, except I still don't have feelings in my fingers from the 23rd with that wind and snow. And the awards night too. It was a great evening. So, yeah.
All right. Perfect. Thank you for all that. And Councillor McKellar.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. Yes, my report's as submitted. The only thing I did not put in there was the green and clean with the frozen hands with Councillor Russell on the 23rd.
Well, some of us stay longer than others, right?
And then, yes, that's true. And then the awards that night. I'll take back my grouchiness on the awards night.
Okay, thank you. Do-over. All right. Okay, and Councillor Hystad.
There's my detailed report before you. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, that's perfect. All right, and I will echo the comments on the Aquatic Center opening. Thank you, Director Jenkins. Do you have anything to add for us for the last week, how it went? I've heard it's been fantastic.
No, again, it was busy all through the week and by far predominantly positive
Yeah, good.
feedback. And they were, busy right through the weekend, full for public swims and all the rest. So
Good to hear.
this week should be a little bit quieter with
Yeah.
the kids back to school, and then the Dolphins start on Friday, so
Oh, good.
we'll be right into it.
Okay, nice. And then the community awards, so thank you to Kristen and Jacob and everybody that was involved in that. It was a very nice evening as always. My report is kind of a copy and paste from the wastewater commission operations agenda, so just a couple of things. There's a odor management facility on the north end of Red Deer. Director Kennedy would know way more about this than I do, but it was, there's been a lot of issues up there on and off, but recently, the last few months, there's been a lot of odor issues, so the team went in to check it out, go down into the kind of the bottom of the chamber, and they had to bring a scuba diver in to clean it out. So they drain the water out, and then all that's left is sludge. So the scuba diver stepped into about, I don't know, I'll go into 4 feet of sludge in the bottom of the wastewater odor management facility chamber. They're kind of up to their chest. They had pictures. I didn't include them in my report. But so the diver is $7,000 per day to come, and it's probably around 10 days to clean this thing out. A lot of the issue is coming from, well, the very high H2S levels, but much of the issue is coming from what's being sent into the system. So I made a motion at the meeting that for the wastewater commission to gather some communication information and send it out to municipalities. And I think that we should be communicating out to our residents on what not to do. And because it was ugly, and things shouldn't be going down the sanitary system that are, such as needles and other such things, wipes and whatnot. So they seem to have the H2S under control. They've used some other products, as you can see in my report. Innisfail is going to be getting a Orca control, so they've been using that in Penhold, and it's AI driven, and so it can determine how much bioxide to use to control the H2S levels. And they're finding in Penhold, I think they've used it for about a year now, that they're using less than what they would have normally, because this instrument is telling them how much to use. So I think Innisfail and I think it's Bowden are getting those things. And then you can see the bottom of the report on the rate, and that will be coming to fruition here by July the 9th. We should have a decision on that from the AUC. So our wastewater volumes were over budget for the first 3 months by about just over 9%. I don't know whether we were filling the pool and draining the pool, or no? Okay, we thought maybe that's what it was, but not sure why. Everybody else was under or very close to budget items, but ours was quite a bit above. So anyway, that is my report, detailed report. Just kidding, yeah. Just kidding. It was deep, yeah. It was, like I said, a lot of it's just copy and paste. So upcoming events, we'll just have a motion to accept the upcoming events as information, please.
Mayor Barclay, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. And then we'll have a motion to go in camera. Councillor Hill.
Mayor Barclay, I'll make a motion that move in camera. Do we need this?
All in favor?
Okay.
Okay, carried. Thank you.